The following is a pre-recorded show. Welcome to Winning in Retirement with your host, Brian Akers, certified financial planner professional and founder of Akers Financial Group. Now, helping you win in your retirement, here's Brian Akers.
Welcome to Winning in Retirement. I'm Brian Akers, president and founder of Akers Financial Group. Here with me today is certified financial planner practitioner, Jeff Akers. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Brian.
Very glad to have you here on the show. Jeff Akers, yes, he has the same last name, but we have come from different parts of the family. He's my cousin.
Our fathers are brothers, but I get my name on the door.
We share a grandmother and grandfather.
We do. We share a whole side of the family.
That's crazy.
It's funny how that works.
And for almost 25 years, we've shared the same career as financial advisors, and basically over time, Jeff has become the right-hand man, or the Jeff Akers, the vice president of Akers Financial Group. So today's topic, the reason we bring Jeff in is because he's steady. You know, he just gives good information. Now, the show today is called Children and Grandchildren Legacy. Yes, we're going to talk about how to help your minor children and minor grandchildren. We're not going to talk into too many things on the legacy side. We're generally going to talk about education funding, how to put money away. You know, every time of the year when May 29th comes up, I love covering the topic 529.
And there may actually be some new things that have come along that you haven't heard about. So we'll touch on those.
We're going to sure try to. Now, our perspective, Brian and Jeff's perspective, Jeff has one child in college currently.
I do.
I have two kids that are out of college.
Yeah, Brian's already done with this for his kids.
So I'm on the freedom track.
And he doesn't have grandkids yet.
Right. So I'm in that, basically the phase where you keep your own money for the first time in your life, which is a wonderful economic phase for those that are still dredging through of got to get them through high school, got to get them through college. And then you'll see that bright light, which is more of a shining light, not a train.
I'm looking forward to it.
Right. So the idea is this. We have a perspective to teach you things we wish we did, things we did, things we advise our clients. We'll tell stories about clients and what they did and how it worked out, how it didn't work out. We have a few things to tell you, and we have a lot to go over. So hold on tight to the steering wheel if you're driving. Make sure you pay attention wherever you're at. We do appreciate you listening to our show today.
Eyes on the road.
Yeah, if you're on a lawn tractor, that's good. I like that. That's a good option.
Eyes on the grass.
Yeah, but wherever you are. So if you're in a car with your own kids and you're talking about college, my first concept is this. You need to work out a deal with your kids about college. Whatever age they are, motivate them to college or to trade or to a career or to what fits them well through the process of talking about it. I like the idea of, hey, if you go to college, I want to support you. And then you pick how much percentage, like a third, 2/3, a little bit, not at all. I like making the child have responsibility for a piece of it so that they are invested in the college life.
They have skin in the game.
We know many stories of those who weren't invested and their grade level, let's say it that way.
They went to college for fun, not for an education.
Correct. So Jeff Akers, Brian Akers are Virginia Tech graduates.
Yes.
We went to there. We can tell you about people at the school that were serious and the ones that were not.
Yes, we know all of them.
Many times the serious ones had money in the game.
Yes, they were working to support their way through school, or they had saved their own money to go to school, but they worked for it.
Now, over the years, 529 as an IRS tax law, 529, which allows people to actually save money that will grow tax-free if used for college, for trade school, for post-secondary education, a bunch of things.
Right. Just has to be something accredited or recognized. So most trade schools and colleges and stuff, they're going to qualify.
And other type of short-term training also, right?
Right. There's all kinds of education.
How about room and board?
It does cover room and board.
Up to like what limit?
There's not really a limit for college expense. It's qualified education expenses, and the list is kind of expanded over the years. But if you think about tuition, that's kind of obvious. Books, that seems kind of obvious. Room and board, it covers that. Now, it has never covered like transportation. Like if you commuted to school, you can't use it to pay your mileage or anything like that. But it covers the big education expenses.
So the plan was all designed to cover after high school. Then over the years, they've made a bunch of changes, especially in the last couple of years. And some of those changes are you can use it for kindergarten through 12th grade.
Right. Yeah, that, what do they call that? Well, not just elementary school, but you could use it for private school.
Yep.
Like I said, K through 12, up to $10,000 a year.
Yeah, $10,000 per kid. So if you have a 529 plan, so the title of the account's a 529, that money, that account would have an owner, which would be the parent or grandparent. Mm-hmm. And when you set that up, you want to have a successor owner.
Right.
Now, it's not joint. You can't make them joint, but you need a successor owner to take over in case one passes away.
Right.
And then you have a beneficiary, and that's the kid.
Yes.
And so each account that's set up, each kid that has an account, now it's not per account, it's just by the kid. They can do $10,000 for private school.
Right.
And then they can do money for college up to the expenses they spend. Right. And there's really no upper limit except for real expenses.
Right. Because depending on where they go to college, it will be significantly more than $10,000 in a year.
When the kids go to college, you need to take the money out of the 529 plans during the years you're spending it.
Right.
Because what's going to happen is the school is going to send 1098 tuition, and then the 1099 Q is the qualified tuition withdrawal out of 529 has to offset.
Right.
And some of the reasons you got to do this, so like if they go to college and then after college, I'm going to reimburse myself for the college. After, you won't have those expenses there in those taxable years.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're going to pay tax on the growth.
And a penalty.
And what's the penalty, Jeff?
10%, because it's not an education expense when it's the year after you had the expense.
Yeah, so you got to be proactively using the funds, depending on how well you've saved, how much money's put away. You got to use it often, try to use the whole fund, unless you have some other goals. This show is going to cover all these choices you have with 529 plans.
Right. Yeah, so far we've only done one. So
these are parents and grandparents can set these up.
Yes.
Typically, if you have an account, you can make a beneficiary be anybody that's a relative of yours.
Right. You can name a beneficiary, and sometimes you pick the beneficiary, the child you're expecting to go to college, and maybe they're really smart and they're going to get all kinds of scholarships and not need any money.
Right.
Well, you can change the beneficiary. And it's pretty expansive who you can change that beneficiary to and use it for someone else.
You can go to the parent to go back to school.
It could go to one of the brothers or sisters.
You can go to my favorite cousin.
It could. Yeah. I'd love it. Well, wait, I'm done with school now.
Jennifer will get it. She'll love it.
Jennifer will use it.
No, I said my favorite cousin, and you assumed yourself. And I just mentioned your sister.
You pointed at me.
just to tease you.
Yeah.
All right. Here in Maryland, there's a Maryland 529 plan. Maryland 529 plan has a custodian. The custodian is T. Rowe Price. This Maryland 529 plan is an investment plan. It is not the prepaid plan through the state of Maryland.
Right. The Maryland College Savings Plan. When you go on their site, it'll ask you college savings or prepaid.
Right.
College savings is the one we're talking about.
So through T. Rowe Price, that is the only account as a resident of Maryland where when you put money in, you get a deduction. So how does that deduction work, Jeff?
Well, you contribute up to $2,500. And you can deduct that $2,500 from your state tax return, your state income.
All right. So if I gave money to a daughter, then that's $2,500. If my wife can also give $2,500, that'd be $5,000. We could take off our joint tax return.
Right. Per owner, per beneficiary.
So we have 2 kids, we could do $10,000.
Yep.
And if you have 4 kids, how many?
Oh, gosh, come on.
20,000.
20,000.
Whatever you set.
Throwing a number at me.
How about 19 kids and counting? How many could the 529s be?
19 kids, 1 parent, and 2 grandparents. No.
All right, the age limit on contributions for 529 plans.
Oh, there's not really an age limit to make contributions into it on 529.
That's amazing. The reason we don't want to do it is if you don't use it properly, what happens is you end up getting that penalty, a 10% penalty for not doing it right.
Yeah, the whole purpose is to use money tax-free for education.
So Maryland 529 has a really good site there. On the site, you can go in there, you sign up the account on your own. It's directly through T. Rowe Price. There's like no commission on it. It's a no-load fund. T. Rowe Price makes money managing it inside. You have investment choices. You have ones where they target date fund you.
Right.
We don't like target dates, but they target date fund you. The other ones are you get to pick your investments inside.
Right. You can pick, at least in the broad sense, you can pick international or domestic, or there's even like a fixed.
Well, there's a money market, a U.S. Treasury portfolio. So I generally tell people before they get to high school, be aggressive with it.
Right.
Invest that money every month. Get started. Once they have a Social Security number, grow that money. As they get into 9th, 10th, 11th grade, you want to start putting that money into cash. You want to be at least a year ahead of distribution in cash, and at your price, it's a money market you put in. That's the one safe place to have there.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to our conversation with retirees and the money they're going to use in retirement. In this case, they're going to use it for education.
Absolutely. So the idea is this. Maryland 529 is for Marylanders to get a deduction. Right. If you max the deductions and want to save more money, there's plans all around the United States.
Well, and in Maryland, you can do $2,500 per year, but if you put $5,000 in one year, you can deduct $2,500 this year and then carry over the other $2,500 to next year.
There are so many strategies when it comes to this. We're just starting.
Right.
So there's a lot of things to pay attention to, but the main idea is this. For children and grandchildren, you want to build a legacy, an education legacy to get them educated so they can do okay on their own. That education might be a trade. Trades are making a lot of money nowadays, and there's some money needed if they didn't tie into an employer that's going to pay it. They might have to pay the money up front to get the education they need to be successful in different trades too.
Right, and the trade schools tend to be less expensive than the college or university.
And usually they stay at home. They don't get the room and board costs, which is a terrible cost we'll talk about later. So Akers Financial Group, when you work with one of our team of advisors, what happens is we talk about your situation, your fingerprint. What's crazy is this. Part of this is the education of your children and sometimes your grandchildren, how you want to try to help. Akers Financial, we're local. We're independent. We don't report to a big company on Wall Street. We report to you. We do have offices in Forest Hill and Lutherville. Clients all around this region, around the Mid-Atlantic region, also around the country, and even a few around the world. It's so easy to begin winning in retirement. Just give us a call and schedule your meeting with one of our team of advisors. Call 833-WIN-RETIRE. That's 833-WINRETIRE. We'll give you a call on Monday to schedule a free in-person meeting. Go to AkersFinancialGroup.com or call us at 833-946-7384 to start planning for your retirement now. If you invested in a 529 but then don't need it, what do you do? We'll talk about this when we return in a moment.
You're listening to a pre-recorded show. Welcome back to Winning in Retirement. Call 833-WIN-RETIRE now to schedule a visit with Brian and his team and begin winning in retirement. Once again, here's Brian Akers.
Welcome back to Winning in Retirement. I'm Brian Akers. I'm president and founder of Akers Financial Group. Jeff Akers is my co-host with me today. We are both certified financial planners with Akers Financial Group. I keep mentioning that.
There's a whole lot of Akers.
Our website's AkersFinancialGroup.com. What else is Akers? Akers, A-K-E-R-S.
That's right. Spell it correctly. Yeah. A-K-E-R-S. It's not like the land.
Yeah. Well, Akers comes from the land in like 1600s, I think.
That's far enough back.
The name came from.
We don't know for sure. But
all right. So the show is called Winning in Retirement. Part of winning in retirement is answering all the other financial concerns and things in life. And so a lot of times you think about your children, your grandchildren, about the legacy you want to leave them. And part of that legacy thought is you want to help with their education, especially with your children. You want to get them off to a good foot and make sure they're get set up in life. And what happens is this, that many people will save money and build up money. And what happens is this important topic for the second quarter is if you invested in a 529 but don't need it, what do you do? We'll talk about that right now.
Yeah, that sounds kind of important.
Yeah, like you said earlier in the first quarter, that what if they get a scholarship and then that pays for, they did really well and got all the money. What do you do with that money that's there? Yeah,
they got a free ride. There's a lot of things that could happen. There's also the option that when they're a child, you're thinking, oh yeah, college. Mm-hmm. And then they get into their high school years and you're like, not suited for college. That's not going to happen. We're never going to spend all this.
I had the opposite happen where the kids and the parents, let's use the parent example. They're like, I'm not sure if this kid's going to college. And I said, well, we could do a little bit of money every month. I like the idea of taking small bites off a college bill by saving a little bit at a time every month. I'm paying the money first, throwing it to the future for that child. Now, worst case scenario, if you just pull it out to buy a car, there is tax and a 10% penalty for a house or a car or anything else.
That's on the gain.
Yeah.
So if you put in $1,000 and it grew to $5,000, that $4,000 difference is taxed and penalty.
Right. And so what happens is that not everyone liked that idea.
Right.
And
nobody likes a penalty.
So one of the rules that came out with the Secure 2.0 law or rules is that they created this idea that if you have leftover money from a long time 529 plan,
at least 15 years.
So if you've had it 15 years, then for the beneficiary, you could do something special for them.
Yes, you can.
And you can basically use that tax-free money that was growing for college and change it to a tax-free retirement account called a Roth IRA.
For that beneficiary.
So one case I have is grandparents funded money for the grandkids.
Okay.
They got very excited when they were born, super funded with a lot of money, overfunded it.
Okay.
And so we're trying to come up with ways to spend it because the one we'll talk about went to college for a year or two. What was weird is his father actually works at a college, so he got free.
No, go to the expensive college. Not the
Please
one
go. We got money for you. Then after 2 years, I don't really like this. I'm going to make a lot of money being a trade, which is wonderful.
Right.
And so he didn't want to spend any of that money. And then the question would be: is do we give it to the other nieces and nephews, brothers and sisters, or can we give it to this one child? And one answer is we can give $35,000 of it over time per year based on their own financial situations.
Right, and the Roth limit for that year.
Right. So right away, as he decides not to go back to college, he's making some money. We have a meeting once a year. We talk about how much money he's making. Does he still qualify to do Roth IRA? And then we move $7,000 out of the 529 to the Roth.
Into the Roth IRA. So $7,000 up to that limit of $35,000. So with the current contribution limits on the Roth IRA, it's going to take 5 years to move the $35,000.
And that $35,000 has not been indexed to inflation yet with the law.
Right.
It's just a simple thing at the moment. So right now, if you don't need the money, that's one of the options, pretty much the only option we have for tax-free.
Yeah.
The other thing, if someone, let's say they're out of school, they have the 529 plan, and then they also have a student loan.
Uh-huh.
So what happens there?
Well, you can actually take money from the 529 to pay your student loan down up to $10,000.
Sure.
Now, it's $10,000 over your lifetime. It's not $10,000 per year.
All right. So why would somebody with a 529 plan need a student loan? Well, the answer is the kid doesn't control the 529 plan. So sometimes the kids told, hey, go get as much loans as you can. You're going to be paying those.
Right.
If you do a good job,
we'll help you out.
We'll help you out. If you don't, you're going to be stuck.
Right.
So these the negotiations, like I started the show with, are very important. If you want to expect something, you got to basically explain to them what you got to basically go over what you want to anticipate later.
Work for it.
Yeah.
You have to work for it.
And that really helps people be successful. Now, so the idea is this. So we are trying to save money for kids or grandchildren. This is a legacy of education. It's a way of helping them for money long term.
Yes.
If we have too much money in there, it can cover college, postgraduate school, as far as you need.
Right, that kind of education. I actually had a situation where parents had overfunded 529s, and the mom, she wanted to go back to school, get a master's degree. So she actually changed the beneficiary on one of the accounts, and she used that money to go to school herself.
Very true. The idea is, let's say you have a nephew who has a loan. You can pull money out of your kid's 529, put it in their 529.
Right, change the beneficiary.
Then give them $10,000 that way.
Right, and then they can use that to pay off their loan.
The reason you go through all that paperwork is to keep it tax-free.
Right.
Tax-free. Tax-free is the only reason to do 529 plans.
Tax-free, and well, it used to be that education was the college education that was the only reason. Mm-hmm. That has changed a little bit with the ability to put money into Roth.
Right.
Because when I'm talking to a parent or a grandparent of a newborn, and I say, okay, you can put this money into a 529 if they don't go to school or they don't need the money, it's not lost. It used to be that it was kind of lost at that point.
Yep.
But now it can go into their Roth IRA, and basically you've been saving for their retirement from the moment they were born, which is just wonderful growth opportunity in there.
Yeah, the other things that happens, and when I hear Jeff talk about Roth, I talk about, well, when can a kid have a Roth IRA? And I'm constantly telling parents they have to have a job.
Right.
You have to have earned income, whenever that is, 14, 15, 16.
Right.
They show a W-2, then you can do a Roth IRA up to the earnings limit.
Up to the amount they made. So if they made $5,000 in a year, they could contribute $5,000 to a Roth.
They made $495, they put $495. Limit $7,000 is the most it can go in, but those are called custodial Roths because under 18 cannot have an account on their own.
Right.
So a custodian is the custodian being a parent or grandparent.
Usually mom or dad.
Over top of the Roth.
Right.
These are all ideas. There's things out there. What happens is this. So in financial planning, we talk about you and your financial fingerprint, who you are, what you want to accomplish with your money, and then we tell you ideas and concepts that can help make this happen. Right.
Sometimes, parents, grandparents, that first grandchild comes, and like the example you gave before, just super excited, and so they want to go kind of, not crazy, but the first grandchild does tend to generate a little craziness. But we can talk to them about different ways. A 529 is a way to help the child. There are other ways to help a child, like a UTMA or something like that, where you can give money for the child's benefit that maybe has different rules and suits what you want to have happen. I've had more and more grandparents in particular say, well, I don't really want to do something that's limited to just education. I want to do something so that one day they could use it to buy a house or use it for a wedding or whatever. And so we talk about other options to use besides 529s as well to create that legacy for the grandkids.
Very true. This whole quarter has been about if you invested in a 529 and you don't need it, what do you do?
Right.
All right. So one case I had, they came in and both their kids are done school. Money's still sitting in there. And they don't want to pay the tax anywhere. Right. And so I said, well, any relatives? And so they moved it to a niece's account.
Okay.
And the reason they did that is they're waiting for grandkids so they could pivot it back.
Then they'll move it back
when the grandkid comes. I am not kidding you. That's how it occurred. Now, the rules have changed where the parents can put it back in their name, actually,
right,
which is unusual, but that can be done.
Right.
So the idea of 529 plans is it's something to think about. It's not just for school anymore. It could be part of the planning, part of the savings plan. The idea of tax-free growth, if it's called qualified use, it makes it a very nice idea. Mm-hmm. It's also a way to help people, help family members, if you want to find ways to do this. We're allowed to gift money a year. You're allowed to give $19,000 per year per person into these plans.
Right.
Now, you might not want to put it all in the Maryland 529 because you might get too much deduction. You might want different investment choices, and so there's lots of plans out there.
Yep.
If you go to brokers or investment people, what they'll probably do is not put you through the Maryland 529 plans because they don't get paid when you go through the Maryland 529.
Right.
Because it's a no load, no upfront commission type thing.
Right.
And what happens is they'll sell their brokerage 529 or whatever. And the thing is that you might want to say is, I'd really like the deduction.
Right.
A $2,500 deduction on state of Maryland basic taxes now that the tax law changed is about $190 off your taxes if you put $2,500 in. It's not off your federal tax, just off your Maryland tax. That's the advantage of the Maryland T. Rowe Price sponsored 529 plan. Is that
right? And I know it doesn't sound like a whole lot of money, but it's almost $200 that's yours instead of the state's, just for doing a simple
put $10,000 in. You got almost $800 off. It's just another it's another tax credit to help benefits.
Just take advantage of it.
If you're listening from other states, every state has their own rules.
Yeah.
There's a website called savingforcollege.com that I love to go to when I'm just trying to figure things out based on state by state. Because we do have clients. I was dealing with an Ohio plan the other day.
Oh, boy.
All right. So we've been talking about 529 plans. And what happens is that your thoughts and our thoughts need to merge together through financial planning. We enjoy figuring it out. It's sort of like a puzzle, like a game, to try to help people get to college, help them pay for it, help them understand how it works and fits, what's the best options on the financial side, so that they can do the very best with the money that they have. So planning for college is part of planning, period. And that planning, the retirement plan, all this comes together. We recommend a free meeting with one of our team of advisors to talk about winning in retirement, where we begin with your situation, your goals. So just give us a call, 833-WIN-RETIRE, or go to our website at akersfinancialgroup.com and find out how to get started right there. Grandparents do love their children. How can they save for their education? We'll talk more about that in a minute.
You're listening to a pre-recorded show. Welcome back to Winning in Retirement. Call 833-WIN-RETIRE now to schedule a visit with Brian and his team and begin winning in retirement. Once again, here's Brian Akers.
Welcome back to Winning in Retirement. Brian Akers. Here with me today is Jeff Akers. We're both certified financial planner practitioners from Akers Financial Group. Today we're talking about children and grandchildren and legacy, education legacy, and what we can do with different options on 529s and education funding. We've gotten ourselves to the second half. Jeff, you ready for this?
I think I am. And just to be clear, grandparents love their grandchildren a lot.
Yes, they do. Sometimes so much so they ignore their children.
Wait a minute. Is that personal experience?
Well, it's like it's Christmas. Could I have one present? No, my parents never did that to me, but it felt like it sometimes, you know?
Yeah, grandparents do love their grandkids. I know that you're looking forward to that day.
Someday. So are you someday. The future is always bright. Currently a grand dog. Try not to spoil the grand dog. That's about it. All right. So grandparents do love their grandkids. That's very true. And they'll do pretty much anything for them. Sometimes they'll do everything the parents tell them not to do.
Yep.
You know, give them chocolate, all the things. Keep
sugar.
Stay up late, whatever the rules are, they go counter on us. But the idea is that when a grandparent saves for college, that's not a bad thing.
Right. That is helping their kids, because now the grandkids, part of their college at least, is paid for.
And sometimes the grandparents like to do it in secret.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't tell their kids or the grandkids that they put money aside for them. They want it to be a surprise.
Right. And then sometimes that causes the overfunding because the parents were saving because that was their responsibility. And then they say, oh, here's a $60,000 account we built up over the years.
That you can never use.
Can I tell an off-the-wall story?
You go right ahead.
One of my favorite TV financial shows was Love Boat.
Really?
I'm not kidding you.
Love Boat.
Love Boat. There's a show that
they didn't have a 529 then.
No, not 529. But this lady and her husband go on their retirement cruise, and as they get ready to go to sleep, she pulls out this piece of paper and says, "I have saved all this money for us to enjoy during our retirement years." And it's like, and she didn't tell her husband she had saved and invested this money. I think that's a great thing. I mean, even as a kid, I thought, oh, that's really nice. The husband goes ballistic on her because he could have used the money earlier in life. He wished he knew about it. He was mad at her. So the whole Love Boat thing was to solve the problem. And he changes his mind and understands the thoughtfulness of saving and the growth and how wonderful it was.
He's thinking ultimately, I could have retired earlier.
Right. All those comments. The whole show's about that, which is pretty funny for a Love Boat show.
Right.
But generally, the concept of hiding it from your loved ones, is that as loving as you think it is?
Not as much as you think.
So the college planning, we've had some issues when you don't tell the kids that you're saving, of overfunding if everyone's a saver in the family, because it does run in the family sometimes. Savers and more savers.
Yep.
So the idea is this. If you want to save for college, then we can. Grandparents can own it, and grandparents can have the grandchild. The parents can own it, and the grandparents can fund the grandchild. Fund it through the kid's account that they set up for the grandkid.
Right.
All kinds of choices, right?
Yeah, that's why you need to come sit down and talk to us, because there's so much that we can't make clear on the radio. We need to talk about your situation.
We're trying our best to make it crystal. Now, the grandfather comes in and sees us and says, I ain't funding the education. That's the parents' responsibility.
Okay, that's one kind of grandfather.
That's not quite the voice I heard, but that's my version today. And he goes, I want to help him with a car, with a house, and I want to be able to give it to him when they need it.
Whenever they need it for whatever they need.
And so we say the options are you keep the money and you give it whenever you need, whenever you want to.
Just make them a beneficiary on it or something.
Right. The only reason you would consider other ways of titling or setting up accounts would be any type of tax advantage investing.
Right.
So what are some ideas there?
Well, one is something that I mentioned earlier called a UTMA. It's a Unified Trust for Minors Act.
Yeah.
It's under the child's Social Security number. So there is tax reporting, but kids, until they start working, they don't have much income. So there's not going to be any tax. At the age of 21, that money becomes the child's money. So the grandparent who put the money in might still be around. They might still be the custodian for the account. But at that point, once the child turns 21, the grandparent's out of the picture. It's the child's money, and they can do whatever they want. It could be the house that you wanted them to get, or it could be the motorcycle that you really wish they didn't get.
All they got to do is show up to the investment account and with a driver's license saying, look, I'm 21.
Give me my money.
Yeah, let me cash that thing in. Right. Now, UTMA, Maryland, Uniform Transfer to Minors Act. Then there was the old UGMA,
right,
which was 18 years old. They got freedom. 21 is UTMA, which we like that a lot better.
Right. Grandparents usually like that one better, too.
Now, the sad part, some grandparents, when the kid's in 21, don't tell them.
I've seen that happen.
And the problem is that that's an IRS problem because that kid is responsible for the taxes on that account because you set up the account in their Social Security number.
And they could be 26 and they haven't reported it yet.
And all of a sudden, they get these IRS notices on dividends and interest. So you got to be careful how you invest it.
Yeah, that's where the secret giving isn't so good. You need to
absolutely
make sure they know.
Yeah. So imagine that you have saved well and you want to help your children and grandchildren with a legacy. Now, that legacy is tied to your beliefs, to what you believe strongly in, and your money can help with this. If it's for education from kindergarten to 12, it could be funding it directly. Right. It could also be funding the school directly. Doesn't count as a gift.
Right.
You could pay directly to colleges. Doesn't count as gifts. You can pay the whole thing and not a gift.
Right. You're just paying their tuition or their room or board or whatever.
So you could do something like that. You could save in a Roth IRA for yourself, and you'll be in your 60s or 70s when the grandkids are time to go to college. You pull it out of your Roth, tax free to you. And you just send the money in. That could be an option.
Right. That's a way to do it.
You keep total control that way.
Control is one of those interesting things that some people really like to keep control.
Right. Now, in Maryland, there's an estate tax issue if you're over $5 million. So over $5 million clients, what we do is something called annual gifting and even a super gifting, where in a 529 plan, you can super fund it with 5 years of gifting all at once.
Right. So $19,000 times 5.
$95,000.
There you go. Brian even did the math. Look at that.
I can
he
do
was
math.
Ready for that one.
I can't do English. I got math down there. All right. So we have this the super gifting. You put money in there, and that's a 529 gift, and they could pay tuition straight in, especially if we're trying to bring the estate underneath that limit if there's one grandparent left type thing.
Right. So you don't have a gift tax issue or a gifting issue, and you've covered their college expenses that way. That's a good way to go.
The hardest thing to tell people about college is that the tuition at the school is cheaper than sending them to college. When you send someone away to college, the room and board and all of that can equal to or cost more than the tuition.
Yeah, I was talking to someone a couple of years ago who was an administrator at a college, and they were saying that they require freshmen to live on campus because that is how the college makes its money.
Wow.
Is by the people living on campus, paying that room and board.
So the colleges, the ones that are staying in business, because there's lots of colleges, especially in the Northeast, that are closing the doors because they have lots of real estate, lots of building, lots of maintenance, a lot of heavy costs day-to-day to run.
Right. There's a lot of expense.
So they got to have certain numbers of kids in the dorms. And so if the numbers are tight, they start changing the rules like that.
Right. And start requiring things to keep people on campus.
Right. So if you're trying to go to college and make it more affordable, paying your own way to make it more affordable, online's been a great way to do it. Now, 529 plans, you could put money in a 529, put it in the Maryland 529, use the money market, take the deduction, and then pay your tuition out of there.
Right. You can do the 529 contribution this year take the money out this year to pay tuition, and you get the deduction.
Yeah, so if you're paying your own way, I think 529s are still a good way to use it. And under the Maryland 529 plan, there's a money market there.
Right.
Now, you only can use $10,000 or less if it's going to be for high school or private school and any kindergarten on up.
Right.
Or any special type of any type of teaching that's tied to that.
Right. Anything education before college kind of stuff.
Summer camps is a gray area. I don't believe it normally counts.
Yeah, I haven't seen that count yet.
Yeah. But when they get to college, all of a sudden college, they do add lots of fees, a lot of expenses, and you got to buy a computer, got to do this, got to do that. And that's a lot of money. And what's nice is when there is money set aside to use it. The hard part is that's not everyone's life.
Right.
The reality is people want to go to school, but they got to figure it out.
Right.
They go in debt. Some go heavily in debt. And then they get out of college and they got to pay the debt off. What do? Right. One idea is get money, $10,000 in, get deductions, and then use that to pay off at least a little bit of the loan.
At least part of it. Right.
How you choose your job, maybe your job through public service. You can have 10 years of working there and they'll forgive your loan. If you'd made basic payments for 10 years, we've done that for physicians, nurses, and other, even teachers can qualify in that case.
And there might even be jobs out there where you work for them for a while and they say, okay, as a benefit, we're going to pay off some of your student debt.
Now, I've seen some of the forgiveness not work because people got in a hurry to consolidate their loans after college, and they moved it away from the loans that could be forgiven.
Right.
I'm not going to get too deep into how that all works, but there's a lot of little things going on.
Right.
Now, there's lots of information out there. This quarter, we were talking about grandparents love their grandkids. We joke a little bit about it, but they do. And they want to put that money to help them long term. They don't want to spoil them to where they become rotten. They want to help them until they succeed. It would be a good idea.
I think some of them do want to spoil them to become rotten just to get even with their kids. But that's another story.
That's not a fun game. That's not a fair game. That's breaking the rules.
Yeah. That's the joy of grandparents. It can sugar up the grandkids and then leave.
Well, they say that. That's it. You get the grandkid and you give them back. You don't take them home with you.
Right.
And then there is jokes where you want to take the grandkid right back to the grandparents. So the thing is this: children, grandparents, and grandchildren, trying to help with legacy, parents, all these people thinking about these minors, how to help them. I think it's a wonderful gift, a wonderful thing to think about and to go through in your financial planning. That is all part of building your solid financial plan. You can do these things when you have your retirement all set up and where you're okay. Because we want retirement to be stress-free, where you decide how to use each and every bit of your time, where you can have time to think about how can I help that grandkid? What can I do? That's a retirement of your own choice. That's what we want to help you with. We want you to win in your retirement. So go ahead and give us a call at 833-WIN-RETIRE. That's 833-WINRETIRE. And we'll give you a call back on Monday to schedule a free in-person meeting with one of our team of advisors. Or you can go to our website at akersfinancialgroup.com and sign up right there. Put the fun into college funding. We will explain in a moment.
You're listening to a pre-recorded show. Welcome back to Winning in Retirement. Call 833-WIN-RETIRE now to schedule a visit with Brian and his team and begin winning in retirement. Once again, here's Brian Akers.
Welcome back to Winning in Retirement. I'm Brian Akers. Here with me today is Jeff Akers. We've been talking about children and grandchildren, about legacy and legacy planning. You can always go to our website at akersfinancialgroup.com under the radio podcast and check us out right there. You can hear past shows right through our website, or you can go to any podcast site. Winning in Retirement will be right there for you to listen to. Now, the reason you do that is to find out more about us, find out more about what we're teaching and educating and also implementing with our clients. So it's a good place to get started as you check us out, Akers Financial Group, and get to know our team of advisors, our co-hosts with me as we work through each and every time we do the radio show. So Jeff Akers here doing the show. The children and grandchildren legacy is the topic, talking mainly about education planning and a heart for giving towards the kids and grandkids' education and ways of doing that.
Yep.
And so this fourth quarter, we're going to put the fun into college funding.
Okay.
Can you say it that way?
fun into funding.
Yeah.
That way you get fun twice.
Yeah. It's still spending money.
It is. Yeah, you're spending money, but for a good purpose.
Yeah,
we'll go with
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. So the idea here is this. Fund into college funding. When should you start planning for college, Jeff? Just generally.
In general, as early as possible.
So for my case, I just set a little bit of money aside every month as early as I could until 529 for the first child, let it grow.
Right.
And then let the second one grow. And then I did the math. I like timelining life and planning life. I have 2 kids 2 years apart. So there's 2 years in my brain.
Double the cost.
Double tuition years. So I wanted to make sure I had at least 529 to fund the double years.
Okay.
So that we could work through the other years through creative planning.
You could work out the bookends.
And with everything else, just the concept of planning. So I like doing that with everybody. It's like, well, tell me about your history. Sometimes people say, well, we had a kid every 4 years. So once one gets done, they got the next one. And I said, as long as they take 4 years, you're good.
They were college planning before they even started having kids.
But the problem there is that they keep going sometimes.
You're going to pay for college for 16 years or
right. And like we start to show off about the celebration of when you're done paying the final tuition.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great day because you actually have money in your own pocket for a while, which
is nice. It gets to stay.
Yeah, that's a great time of life there. I don't encourage people to wait till the kids are done college before you start saving for retirement.
Right.
Any and all goals are achieved best by letting your money work for you, by starting early and often putting money aside. Mm-hmm. Now, not everyone has money to start. Sometimes we're in a negative hole of debt or whatever, and you got to get your way out of that hole, and then you can set money aside for longer-term goals.
Right.
All kinds of options.
Yeah, and that can be hard, but sometimes it's about building positive habits, good habits.
So the idea of having fun with college funding is to make sure that when you step off the college campus or out of trade school, you don't have this big bill that looks like a mortgage.
Right.
That it's already on your budget and you're sort of overwhelmed with debt before you even get the first job.
Right. You're paying for education 10 years after you've graduated.
So the concepts is you got to plan your college, where you need to go, why you're going to college, what's the purpose, what's the education choice, online, what's the best options to help me get the ultimate job that we want.
Right. So for the child going to college, you've got to have a plan. For the parents of the child, you've got to talk to your child to develop a plan together. And then there's the part of the grandparents helping the child. And that's kind of like the bonus help, I'd call it.
Yep.
Where the grandparent, they've taken care of their retirement, they've got what they need, and they want to help the grandchild get through college. And that's a great gift.
Sometimes we have family meetings. I had a case where the grandmother passed away. The grandfather really wanted to do right with the money. And so we had the kids come in, and then we had a family talk about giving money for college and make sure and keeping the families equal and how to do it. And do they want us to fund it? And that whole conversation of, if we fund this, is that okay?
Right.
And does that fit your plan? Do you need it for any private school while they're younger? What's going on in your life? So we try to build the plan around all that.
Right. Is this going to help you, or is it just going to be kind of a waste?
Now, in financial aid purposes, if grandparents own the 529, that used to actually hurt sometimes.
Yes, it could.
But that doesn't happen anymore.
They
right?
changed that rule?
Absolutely.
Really?
And so what that means, what used to happen was if you took money out of a grandparent's 529, where the grandparents own it for the kid,
right,
they would count the withdrawal as the kid's money.
Income for the kid.
Right. And so they count it as a high level in the financial aid.
Right, which is the worst thing when you're applying for financial aid.
And so the general advice was grandparents, 529 money, you wait till later in college to use it.
Pay the last year.
If you're getting financial aid, you don't touch that money.
Right.
Until you have to. And it's not reportable until you withdraw.
Right.
Now it's the opposite. It's going to be reportable, like at the general level, 529 level, like 5.8 or roughly around that number.
Okay. So whether it's the parent or the grandparent, that's the owner.
Yeah, and then the withdrawals work itself out through there.
Okay.
Now, financial aid, you have to understand that each school has their own systems, their own process. There's federal financial aid and there's a school financial aid. You need, as they're picking colleges, junior, senior year, or even earlier, you got to talk to a financial aid office, no matter what kind of money you make, to see what you need to do to qualify the right way.
Yeah, and what you just said is the money that's owned by the grandparents in the 529 plan counts as an asset on the parents' level. So you want to tell your kids that you've got it if you're doing it.
You got to make sure it all works out. Now, as you work through the 529 planning and the idea of saving the money for the college, one of the things that you got to think about is getting ready financially for the application. That's a whole nother set of financial planning. Right. That's not the topic for the day of getting qualified for that.
Right.
But generally, the assets you hold, retirement, houses, things that are insurance-based, all don't count in financial aid. But money in the bank, liquid accounts, things that are joint, things that you can get access to, there's only so much of that doesn't count. The rest counts as liquid money to pay college.
Yeah.
And so even if you don't have a lot of income, if you have a lot of assets, you could have an issue where you can't get financial aid.
Possibly, but the grandparents, that secret account that we talked about before, well, you can't keep it secret.
Yeah, so what a financial planner does, financial planner is going to talk about your situation, the kid's situation, and see what could be the best way to help them, whatever their college choice may be. Sometimes college choice can be a very expensive choice.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got to really address this. Sometimes it's a choice of, hey, and community college is pretty decent price, and I can get the major I want. I'm going to start there and pay out of cash. Then I only have to pay 2 years of a 4-year school.
Right, and that can be a very wise decision for kids coming out of high school.
So generally today we talked about 529 plan. We talked about here in Maryland, there's a Maryland 529 plan.
Right, the college savings plan.
Yeah.
That's the one that we want.
Explain that again.
So college savings is where you're putting money aside and you're going to use for college. There is a prepaid college plan where you're prepaying for college. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about saving money to use for college.
Right. And so that money for use for college, if you do not use it for college, what's the punishment?
Well, the punishment if you take it out for something other than education expenses is tax and penalty on the gain in there. Mm-hmm. But we do have some options now that we didn't have years ago, like putting that money into a Roth IRA for the beneficiary of the account with no tax, no penalty. Mm-hmm. So that's a great legacy.
We had a case where the kid did so well that they got a job about their junior year, and then that employer offered to pay the whole tuition the senior year, and we had $20-some thousand left over.
Hello, Roth IRA.
Well, you would think, except for the kid says, hey, they offered me a full-time job. I want to buy a house.
So give me the money.
So we had to put the money in the kid's name so the parents wouldn't have to pay the tax.
Okay.
So he did that, and then the money got to the kid's on the kid's ID number as the owner. The kid paid the tax, and then the kid took it out, paid a penalty to help fund the house.
Okay. Well, that was his choice, and if the parents were okay with that,
it's like free to him.
Right.
The penalty doesn't hurt when it's not your dollar.
Right.
Is that
but
fair
for
to
the
say?
Parents, it's like, I worked for that money, and now it's getting penalized.
Well, the hard part is you plan the best you can in every situation. You plan with all the rules, the way things are, and the way life should work out, and you do your planning. Then plans have to pivot. Plans, the reason you have to have an advisor that's ongoing, that meets with you and talks with you and makes sure what's going on in your life once a year, twice a year, 4 times, depends on what's going on.
Right.
Is so you can plan all of these things out and get this money ready for when it's needed most.
Right. So you might come in with, I've got money that I want to go towards my grandchild. You talk to an advisor and we tell you the different options, what happens today, what the potential things are down the road, and you can make a smart decision then. Yeah,
I want to close the show with a basic story about this couple. When they met with me the first time, they were young, their kids were young, and the wife or the mom, her best friend passed away.
Oh.
And gave money towards her, and she didn't want the money.
Okay.
And so I went and explained some ideas. And one idea was, let's use that lady's money to fund your kids' college.
Okay.
And they're real young, pre-kindergarten or younger. Put the money in there. The money has grown, and now the kids are finishing up school. And that money from that inheritance, which mom didn't want the money because it's her friend, she took her friend's legacy to then fund the college. And it's just enough money to get them through college.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, it doesn't cover every fee, but real close. But it's just a situation where money that was set aside, we put it for a purpose and invest it long term. And the end result is it fulfilled a wonderful thing in their kid's life. So so it's like a bonus to the saving of that money.
Right, a special legacy for her kids.
Yeah, so that's a legacy of friends. But our show's going to talk about children and grandparents and the legacy of education for kids. We try to give you some ideas and some thoughts. The key idea is this: talk with a financial advisor. Hey, talk with Akers Financial Group with one of our team of advisors and get to know us and help you with winning in retirement and winning in your financial planning.
Yep, that would be really good.
All right, so we thank you very much, Jeff. Good job.
Well, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I think, Jeff.
My pleasure.
All right, today we did cover children and grandchildren, the legacy, the education planning. We do look forward to meeting with you. We want you to win in your retirement by taking advantage of the opportunity to begin planning with us at Akers Financial Group. To schedule a free meeting with one of our team of advisors, go to our website at akersfinancialgroup.com. Scroll to the schedule a meeting section and let us know you'd like to schedule your free meeting right there. That's akersfinancialgroup.com, or you can call us at 833-WIN-RETIRE. That's 833-WIN-RETIRE. We'll call you on Monday to schedule your free in-person meeting with one of our team of advisors. Start planning for your retirement now. Go to akersfinancialgroup.com or call us at 833-946-7384. Thank you for listening. I'm Brian Akers from Akers Financial Group, and we want you to be winning in retirement.
You've been listening to Winning in Retirement with your host, Brian Akers of Akers Financial Group. Akers Financial Group offers securities through Archedios Capital, an SIPC and FINRA member firm. Advisory services are provided through Archedios Wealth. Akers Financial Group and Archedios do not share any common ownership. Neither Archedios nor Akers Financial Group provides tax or legal advice. Advice given on winning in retirement is general in nature, and one should seek further advice from their financial advisor, broker, attorney, and or tax accountant before investing. Be sure to read each prospectus carefully to understand all the risks associated with each investment. Examples and scenarios shared are meant to be for illustrative purposes only. Past performance is not indicative of future results.